You're watching Cinepolitics with me, Faiza Ahmed. Coming up on this week's show, we'll be reviewing Argo, a political thriller starring and directed by Ben Affleck. It's been produced by George Clooney and also stars John Goodman, Alan Arkin and Bryan Cranston. Now, Argo is set in Iran in 1979 and recounts the story of the Iranian hostage crisis through the eyes of Hollywood and the CIA. Ben Affleck plays CIA agent Tony Mendes, who creates a fake sci-fi film Hollywood production called Argo in order to rescue a group of US diplomats from Tehran. Now, the production budget for this film was $44.5 million, and Turkey has been used to replicate Iran. Now, Argo is loosely based on a real-life story. So, is loosely the key word here? And has reality been distorted? Let's take a look. Joining me today to discuss Argo, we have Mohammed Saeed Bahmanpour, academic and scriptwriter, and Phil Reese, documentary filmmaker. Welcome to the show, both of you. Now, we've just seen the trailer and we hear the line, "The actions of Iran have shocked the civilized world." Is this film descending into typical Hollywood stereotypes, Phil?
Well, of course it did. I mean, it presents itself as a true story, yet you had no real characters from the Iranian side. The only people you had any empathy with, or whose characterization you followed in the film, of course, were the Americans, and, you know, of course, Ben Affleck as the CIA hero. So I think that was the fundamental problem. I mean, I always watch a film for the sound design, for the camera work, and some of the editing, and I thought that, you know, that was all quite good. But if you look at the underlying message, and that is delivered emotionally, I'm afraid. There was total sympathy for, you know, effectively the CIA and its mission.
Now, Saeed, how distorted do you think the events are in this film?
Well, of course, the structure of the events is the way they have portrayed, and I think we have to understand Americans have every right to make films about their heroic acts of whatever organization, CIA or whatever else. However, it has been a sort of habit in all such films that they demonize other nations to glorify themselves. And this happens in this film as well. They are demonizing Iranians in a very great extent. There are, of course, problems in historical issues here, right? For example, they always talk about Revolutionary Guard, when still at that time there was no Revolutionary Guard. It had not formed yet. There were committees looking after these affairs. However, as Phil said, the way they had portrayed Iranians, it was just a caricature of human beings. They were no human beings. They were just puppets playing there without any emotion, without any character. And of course, on the American side, you have everything there. You sympathize with them. You think that they are right in whatever they are doing. So the whole theme of the film, although it may portray a historical story, however, the spin it gives it would somehow brainwash the viewer towards the Americans rather than towards anyone else. Yeah.
Now, at the beginning of the film, there is a cartoon of some kind. It's almost of a dummies crash course into the history, where they talk about what happened with the Shah, the coup, and Mossadegh. What was the Shah's relationship like with the administration of Jimmy Carter?
Well, I mean, the whole issue behind this hostage taking was the rage that Iranian nation had against America. I mean, we show these people as very nice and neat people. They were just there to do their duties, diplomatic duties. But we know that all the tortures, killings, which happened before the revolution, several thousands of people, they were backed by America. They were backed by American embassy. Shah was consulting American ambassador all the time. These are not said. The only thing is said is the time of Mossadegh. Mossadegh was very far away from that. And also, even when the rage of the Iranians is being depicted, is it it is depicted in a very crazy way. People are very angry, shouting without any reason. I mean, the incident which happened in Bazaar, that Bazari man started to shout because why did you take a photo? I mean, it was crazy. No human being would do that. So it was just demonizing the other people. You may say the story the way it is, but the way you portray it, the spin you give on it is very important, and this is what Hollywood is always doing about other people.
Well, I'm going to pause there. We're going to go to our next clip in which we see the CIA discussing various options to free the diplomats. So they've just described Tony Mendes as a guy who helped get a lot of the Shah's people out of Iran. How much did the Shah rely on the US to retain power?
I think at the very end of his reign, he was disappointed by, as he himself usually used to say, that by the betrayal of Americans. He actually hoped more support from Americans than what he had received. However, up to the very end of his reign, even when he was outside Iran, the Americans, the British, I remember, the British Foreign Minister on the TV coming out and saying, we support the Shah. And this support didn't just mean a sort of psychological or spiritual support. It was support with arms, it was support with training and all these things and money. So taking people of Shah out of Iran in itself is a crime, which they are admitting to it in this film. However, because they are looking from their own perspective, that was a good thing because Shah was their man. And so taking those people outside Iran was a good thing for them.
Now, Phil, how much of this is about West's greed for Iran's oil? All of the actions from the coup to what we've seen.
Well, of course it is. I mean, that's what the whole history of certainly Britain and then the United States relations to Iran, going back to 1907 when oil was discovered by what is now British Petroleum there. So, of course, the story of the relations is the story of the West wanting to basically steal oil. So that underpins a lot of what we're talking about. And yes, the point about Hollywood is it is soft power of the United States. And I think it's a deliberate policy objective of certainly the Defense Department and others to actually use Hollywood to project American power and to legitimize that power. And I think this film is another example of that. I mean, it did do that in the way that it kind of legitimized their actions in going to another sovereign country, deceiving the country, and working as a secret state, in other words. But of course, that's always for the good of the world.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because at the end of the film, and you may have noticed when they've got some text running over the credits, they say the story stands as an enduring model of cooperation between governments. Is it not undermining the sovereignty of Iran? It's not really cooperation between governments.
Well, of course not. I mean, it's America's cooperation, with a neighbor that was probably under pressure to do exactly what its military and defense establishment wanted to. So, I mean, again, it's the egocentric version of the United States and its view of the world.
Now, in the film, we see there's scenes at the beginning where the embassy staff are in such a hurry to burn the documents, and they say, burn everything. The rioters have broken through the gates, and they have literally an hour. What were they trying to destroy? What were they trying to hide?
Well, every embassy always, they have diplomatic sort of stuff which they regard to be classified. However, with regards to American embassy, there were huge documents there about the way the Shah was supported, the people who helped the American embassy, the Shah with the American embassy, and many other things that they wanted to hide. And the fact that the people who took the embassy could actually assemble this together was very frightening for CIA.
And it wasn't sweatshop kids who assembled the documents.
Well, I mean, the film tried to, as I said, to portray a very demonized picture of Iranians. I mean, everywhere. Just like at the end, instead of these guards calling the control tower to stop the plane to fly, they go mad and they run onto the taxi road. I mean, these were just caricatures, as I said.
Well, I'm going to pause you there. We're going to go to our next clip. Now, we attended the red carpet event for Argo and caught up with the director and actor Ben Affleck, and here's what he had to say. Tonight, I'm at the red carpet event of Argo, a film produced by George Clooney and directed by Ben Affleck. Now, the film is set in 1979 Iran. The film stars Ben Affleck and John Goodman. Now, we are expecting the stars to attend the red carpet event tonight, so stay tuned to see what they've got to say. How would you respond to people who think this film could be nothing more than anti-Iran propaganda, given that we're in such troubled times?
I don't see how it could be. I just don't see it.
Do you think it's a political film?
I think it's an adventure film.
Can you understand why the Iranian students were so angry at the US and why they stormed the embassy?
Yes, and that's part of why I wanted to affix a section at the beginning of the movie that talks about the history with Mossadegh and with how he was deposed and how Reza Shah was installed, and the sort of the tyranny and the oppression that was involved in his rule for so many years, so that not only students but the communists and merchants and secularists and so many hundreds of thousands of people wanted to end the Shah's rule. And there's an interesting segue between that revolution and what became the Islamic Revolution. With Khomeini. Obviously, we couldn't tell the whole political story of Iran, but I wanted people to have some context, to understand history, because I think it's important ethically as a filmmaker, and I think it really helps people appreciate the movie more.
Do you think this film it could be seen by some as nothing more than anti-Iran propaganda?
Absolutely not. I really designed this movie to be completely neutral, to not be politicized, to focus on the facts themselves. And there are characters in there, like, for example, the young woman who works for this family, who's meant to symbolize people who are just caught up in political forces they can't control. There's a revolution.
It was set in 1979 during a very political situation.
It was, and I didn't even anticipate that the situation would be as political as it has become. But I do think it's meant to raise questions that really merit talking about now. I don't want it to take a position one way or the other. I don't want it to be exploited by people who have a position one way or the other. I simply wanted to factually tell a story, and if that engenders a genuine and honest conversation, well, that's a good thing.
So John Goodman says it's an adventure film, not political film, and Ben Affleck has said he wanted it to be neutral and not politicized. But how can that be? I mean, is that the case?
Well, I mean, it's like a lot of broadcasters claim impartiality. I mean, it's such a load of rubbish. It's philosophically, so weak position to hold, you can't really defend it. I think it is interesting that it made certain points at the beginning. It certainly pointed out the CIA's involvement in overthrowing Mossadegh. It said that Savak, the Shah's secret police, had tortured all these people. So it had a few lines there, and I actually was, it depends on what one expects from Hollywood on presenting Iran. I was kind of surprised from that, and then you realize that George Clooney and Ben Affleck were involved. Now, of course, they're considered liberal filmmakers. So then,
is this liberal Hollywood propaganda?
Well, that's as far as it goes. Yeah, you could argue that actually it's more powerful because it gives a presentation of being balanced, all right? And yet, if it had come from, Fox News, it would have been much more vocal in its antipathy to Iran in all senses. Perhaps this is more dangerous because it still presented every Iranian there virtually as being completely mad, whereas it tried to explain their madness and their anger, which was genuinely there at the beginning, but then that was forgotten, and then the characterization, the emotion took over, which was the antithesis of that.
Do you think that there's a chance this film could aid the efforts of warmongers?
Well, I think before answering that question, I have to say I really believe Ben Affleck in what he said. He's quite honest. He wanted to be impartial, but this is the best that they can be impartial. I mean, they cannot be better than this. If liberal people are like this, then you can imagine how the conservatives, how the hardliners and radicals are thinking in America. And this is really, really a nightmare for the world. I mean, Mitt Romney was saying that America should carry a big stick around the world. I mean, this is their mentality. And this is how they can be impartial. And you cannot change them until and unless you could have the power to change their mentality, to show that they cannot just go on like this forever.
But is there a risk that people will see this as the real version of events that took place? Many people in America probably may not know the history. And they could see this and think, this is what happened. The CIA are amazing. They went and carried out this smooth mission. And
well, I mean, exactly. I mean, there are a few points. I mean, first of all, the CIA's understanding of events in Iran proved to be one of its biggest disasters. I mean, they did not see the revolution coming, which is kind of ironic. But of course, whenever the CIA is presented in such a way, it is because of the, the way that America sees itself. It's a benign power. There's actually a danger for Americans here. They kind of promote a secret state and kind of legitimize that. Actually, in a democracy, it should be scrutinized.
Well, I'm going to pause there. Let's go to our final clip in which the US government sanctions Argo. I just want to go back to a point you made about the filmmakers trying to be impartial. If they were trying to be impartial, do you not think they could have done a better job of getting, I guess, Iranian consultancy on this? Because there's some errors that I picked up on this, such as there's a scene in the film, I'm not sure if you'll both remember, where Ben Affleck, upon leaving the embassy, he says salam. Now we all know salam is it's a hello, it's not a goodbye. I mean, well, they're basic errors in there.
It's the truth. They didn't have good consultants. They didn't have informed people. And even about the facts in Iran, they didn't have good information. I mean, people being hanged in the street, just hanging there, and nobody cares about it. And people being just shot without any reason in the streets. I mean, this is, as I said, this is just demonization. However, even about the facts, as you say, they were not well informed about many particulars of the film, which is, of course, that's a very, very big shortcoming of the film, yeah.
Now, the CIA, this whole film is about the CIA sanctioning a project. How involved do you think the CIA actually are in Hollywood, Phil?
Well, I mean, certainly the Defense Department, I mean, is publicly, it has a large office there. It supplies a lot of, armaments, tanks, helicopters. If it approves a script, it will help to finance that film because it realizes that it projects American power in a way that is usually quite, it's usually benign, but it's also usually powerful, so that it kind of scares other people and it makes America into a global power and helps to create that. So the military is heavily involved. I mean, the CIA is a secret organization, so we don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't have an interest in it.
Well, I found something quite interesting on the CIA's website, and we're going to see it on the screen. It's basically called the CIA Entertainment Industry Liaison Office, and it's set up to provide a authentic look, an authentic insight into the CIA and to give an accurate portrayal. And what I found really interesting about this was, as you look down, they have got inspirations for future storylines, and they give you current picks. And I mean, what do you say about this?
That's fascinating. And also, I didn't realize about this. Of course, the military does as well. So, of course, they therefore are fully aware of the soft power of Hollywood and how
this is for authors, filmmakers, actors, producers, screenwriters, and
yeah, of course, they try to use this soft power, as Phil says. And you said, isn't there a risk that people may believe this is the truth? Well, unfortunately, I have to say that 80% of the people in the West would believe this. And this is why we are in this disastrous situation in relationship between the Third World and the West, especially between Islam and the West, because of these Hollywood films, because of Fox News, because of all other media hypes, that we are in this terrible situation of misunderstanding. And this film, of course, would contribute to that one step further.
So, Phil, does this play into the fears manipulated by Western governments?
Well, it serves them to help them if they want. And as I say, Affleck, I mean, as if he'd had a quick history lesson there, showed a kind of ignorance in what he was saying, and I think, agreed, that's the problem, a lack of understanding of different civilizations and countries.
Well, we're going to have to stop there. We have run out of time. Thank you to both my guests, Phil and Saeed, and of course to all of you at home. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can do so by emailing us at cinepolitics@presstv.co.uk, or you could join our Facebook fan page. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.